Welcome to another episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. It's your favorite baby daddy, AJ. And today we have to run it back, right? Last week we had one half. This week we have the other half. We have Kelly from the Better Baby Daddy Club podcast. Appreciate you being on today, brother.
I appreciate you having me on, AJ. Yeah, I'm the second of the duo, and we all just trying to make it a little bit better out there for them baby daddies.
Exactly, right? We're going to start you off the same way we start off the baby daddies, the married ones, everybody. What does it mean to you to be a father?
Man, great question. It is the highest calling, I think, as I've gotten older, and now that I'm a grandfather and I see my sons and daughters pouring into their children, you realize what an important role you have um, as a dad. That you really are putting tools in your children's toolbox that are going to impact your grandchildren. And so um, it's no higher calling, except for maybe being a husband, I think. But it's a very, very, very important role. I see it as an educator when that father role is missing. And as I said before, when I see it now, when you see your
Yeah.
kids parenting, it really hits home.
So when you speak on that, how many kids do you have? Because you said you're a grandparent now. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that means your children got to be older, right?
Yeah, yeah. The Lord has blessed me. I have 10 kids, and it's a blended situation. So there's seven biologicals and three stepchildren over a couple of marriages. So it's a complex situation. We've done a lot of work as a family. The oldest child is 32, the youngest is 21, and you can imagine there's 11 years and there's 10 children. So they sliced in there pretty tight. Um, and then the grandchildren, the grandchildren that's seven down to we just was blessed with a new grandchild recently. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna just skim past that really quick. Like we're not gonna just let this we got 10 kids and just no. We're gonna get to this. We're gonna have to get to this. So you have 10 children over the course of 11 years. And between how many different moms?
Yeah, it's three different moms. So I was married, had five kids, was not the best husband. And so that
Mm.
relationship did not last. And, then got remarried, had two more kids. And then that second wife had a daughter already. And then, as you know, a lot of times the second marriage is if you don't do the work you need to do as a man to stabilize yourself, you automatically go into a situation with much more work and probably less skills unless you've really done some hard work. And so that relationship didn't last. And so decided to saddle up for the third and last time and got married. And so no biological kids from that one because I was much older, but she had two children already. So that's where the three um, stepchildren come from. But I had seven biologicals. Yeah. So it was an intense period, brother. I tell my friends that
Gotcha.
during that period where the biologicals were coming, I was like Steph Curry. I said, "Hey, coach, if my feet get set, it's going down." Right? I was not. I was obviously not missing. So, so it was a lot. It was a lot. A little bit of time.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, so I'm gonna go back to that first one because that is going to be a dynamic that's going to be very unique when you have five children and then
Yeah.
you have to walk away from that situation and then start over and have two more.
Yeah.
So how was it originally walking away from five? Because that's a lot.
It is, and not my proudest moment. I will say that as a dad, and fortunately, I'm kind of playing with house money in terms of time back with my kids. And it was like that. I walked away. There was a point in time where I had a decision where I could stay and do the work I needed to do as a man, and I remember distinctly thinking, AJ, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to do the work over the extended period of time where to build back the trust with my wife at that time. I didn't feel like I had it in me to do it. I was wrong, and I made I chose the easy wrong instead of the hard right. And so that's something that over time, God's given me the opportunity to walk that back, repent, make amends to both, my wife, my ex-wife, and the kids, because kids, as you know, you might leave when they're seven, but the ripple of that comes through at 13. It comes through again at 16. It comes through again at 21. It comes when they become parents. So the impact of that wound is deep and it's long lasting. And you have to be, that's one thing we try to tell the guys on our platform is that, man, if you do that, if you're the reason for the fracture in a relationship, you got to be prepared to do that trench work with your kids. So not a good moment for me as a dad, but fortunately, over time, they were gracious enough to keep their hearts open to me. Not every kid is like that, and with each of them, they needed something different. So it was tough. It was some of the hardest work I had to do as a man. It's still work. I'm almost 60, and it's still work with the kids in different ways because different stuff comes up, particularly for the boys because they emulate and their image of how a man handles problems is you. And when they say, "Oh," when it got tight for dad, all I know is that dad, he bolted, he came back, but man, when the chips was down, he was gone, and mom was out there. So you have to work to rebuild their confidence that they can do it better than you, and that can be tricky sometimes.
So, well, how old were they when you left? Because that could play a part as well. Because if they don't know, like for example, my son, I wonder if he will view it that way because he knows no different. He doesn't know of me leaving. I mean, eventually, I guess as you get older, you're going to know, like, hey, mom and dad aren't together. So it had to have been a part at some point, but he never knew of that's the norm.
Yeah,
There was never anything different for him
yeah. For
before,
my
he's
oldest,
like 2 years old. So
yeah,
is it different for the older ones or was it easier for the youngest one? How was that dynamic?
yeah. It's a different wound for different kids, and certainly the ones that have real clear memories of you being at home and all they know it was good and then you were gone. So for my oldest son, it
Yeah.
was very traumatic. He was 7. I verbally made some promises that I wouldn't leave, and then I broke that promise, and he remembers that. And he, was left with a lot of questions and a lot of,
Yeah.
um, feeling that he, for some reason, wasn't valuable enough. And then, as the oldest and being a boy, there's that weight of, now I got to step up as a man. I got to shoulder things that my dad should have shouldered.
The
Um,
man. Yep.
underneath him is my daughter, and she was just recently on our podcast as a 30-year-old woman talking about navigating that space as a young girl and then a teenager and then a young adult and now a mom. And so it was hard for her because we had a great relationship. And then, at 5, I was gone. The brother underneath her, 3, he doesn't remember a whole lot. He just heard this word divorce as he got a little older, and somebody had to plug in a definition for him. And then the 2 youngest don't remember hardly anything. But as I said,
Yeah.
and so the reparenting
Yeah.
and the reentry into their life is a little different for each of them. Um, but it's ongoing. I'd say it changes, but it doesn't really stop because they hit different milestones. And now as a dad, you kind of stepping in when and try to offer some advice if they ask you for it on how to navigate those things when you weren't there. So um, and then it's different with the for the 2 that I had in the second marriage. So all they know is I was there.
So,
Yeah. So I had 2 in the second marriage, um, kids in the second marriage, and then the first stepchild. And so that's a different dynamic when that relationship implodes. So, but fortunately, man, like I said, all of the children get together. They're close. There's different pockets of them that are really tight. But to answer your question, it was a real blow to those first 5 in particular. A really, really hard time. So don't recommend it. So that's why we tell guys on our platform, man, keep it clean. Try to do the work
so
when it when
yeah,
it when when
yeah,
it when it's when the work is easy. But do the work.
yeah. So it's you were able in that moment to realize that there's work that needs to be done, and I just know I can't do it, or was that something that you came over time to recognize?
Yeah, it was both things. So it was a point where I remember distinct kind of why in the road. Some friends of mine were in my ear saying, "Kelly, you really blowing it. If you continue down this path, you're gonna lose your family." I remember my mom saying that, some close friends from church saying that. And so there was a point where I made a decision, and I made a decision to not do the hard thing. And then over time, like you don't realize how hard you have made your life and your children's life and your ex's life, but over time it gets revealed to you what a bad decision that was. So when you see different things pop up, or you realize, man, now, financially I got to do this. Emotionally, there's these impacts. Um, the weight of what you did comes home. And so over time, you realize, man, this really was not the path I should have taken. How can I make it better now? So, to answer your question, there was an initial time where I knew, hey, I'm not going to be able to do that work. I don't want to do that work. I don't think I'm capable of doing that work. And I decided to jet. And then over time, I was like, man, yeah, I made a mistake, and this work is hard. But I got a responsibility, and I got to find a way to get better at being a dad.
Yeah, and it's crazy because sometimes you hear like, so you're saying no matter what, just stick it out and do the work. Other times you hear like, just leave because it's going to be better for the kids and better for everyone else. And like, it's that dynamic. It's the balance is tough to try to figure. And each situation is different for every person.
Yeah.
Absolutely different for every person. Because I'm also one that will tell someone like, if you feel like you're not going to change, you're going to keep doing what you're doing, you eventually, no matter, most of the time, we know what that involves, right? You're going to get caught up, and then it's going to cause them to absolutely hate you.
Yeah.
You might as well just leave and deal with it that way, as opposed to
Yeah.
getting caught up in something and then hating me that way.
Yeah.
But really, the answer should never be either one. It should be do the fucking work.
And that's it. I
That's
would
the
say that.
real answer.
Yeah. I wouldn't sit here and say the best decision is to leave. It's, like I tell my kids, do the hard right. Like there's going to be a right thing and a wrong thing to do. The right is going to be really hard, like outside of your capability or what you think you can do at that time, or you've never seen a man do it before. You might be the first joker in your family to do it, but do the hard work, because either way it's going to be hard. So if you don't stay, and then you open your family up and your children up to another man stepping in and having influence over your kids, or dictating when you can or can't see your kids, you open that whole Pandora's box up. That's hard. If your daughter, as my daughter said to me, hey, Dad, basically, I just view you as a sperm donor at this point. We were close, but you don't have this latitude in my life anymore because you weren't there. That's hard. So you got to really decide what your heart is. But that's the problem, AJ, is like when you're on the front end, and let's use that example, you getting caught up. When the coochie and the tail is good, your ears are not open to common sense. So your eyes are not open to common sense. When you out there, with like a buddy on another podcast said, when the sex is loud, you're not hearing common sense. And so you have no idea of the
Man.
impacts that you're causing. And we both, man, we can speak plainly, and we talk to men. We know how numbing and what a drug that can be, and it keeps you from being aware of, this is where you got to put your time and energy. That's going to fade, and then the reality of your kids really missing you, and you damaging them, and you delaying their growth is going to come due. So, but it's hard for youngins to understand that when the breakup is fresh, and that warm piece of tail where you land is so satisfying. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
So
Yeah. It's
so
like, and
we
it's
try,
yeah.
yeah, and we just try to tell men, hey, listen, play it all the way through. Where do you want to be in 60 or 70 years, and what do you want your children to be able to say to you? Do that work now.
Yeah. 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 Because that's honest. That's to be
Hey,
honest. And it's a mindset, man, because it's when you're younger, you were taught and almost basically you're taught to chase it.
yeah.
And you
Well,
don't, and you
it's
think
in
you
you to
just,
chase.
you think you just turn it off, and
No,
it don't just turn off that way.
hey, listen,
You can't just have a key and like, oh, I'm changed. Like you gotta actually really work. It's not going to be just the switch that's going to just happen like that.
no,
Like you're going to actually, and
no.
like, cause I mean, it used to be a thing like, hey, you can never get tired of chasing it. Cause you know what? New pussy never gets old. The saying, that's the way it was. You
Hey,
live that way, like, but it is so Wrong mindset. If I could teach my son anything,
Hey,
that is the biggest thing. Like, please do
hey.
not fall down that rabbit hole.
It's tough, man. Everything in us is built. I mean, you're fighting against the biology of how you're made. I tell my boys all the time, listen, and I didn't really understand it until I had to take care of my dad up close in his 80s. And I thought, you get to your 80s, you 85, that dog in you dies down. That pilot light goes down and it doesn't go down. And you just learn to manage it better. And I didn't realize how strong that was until I was taking care of my dad as he was getting older. And we would be out, we'd get some coffee, youngin would walk by. She's pretty. Of course, I see her out of peripheral, but yeah, I can't do nothing with it. And my dad would, my dad would lock in, and we just look at one another. I said, "Pops, really?" He said, "Man, you don't never stop noticing." And I was like, "Hey, that's the
Man,
truth. Like that pilot, like you know, I grew up with gas stoves, right? That pilot light is always lit. Now you might not be able to get it
yeah,
up to a full flame, but as a man, you got to recognize that pilot light is always lit. And so as you get older, you get better at managing that aspect of your life. So you're just not running wild. But what we try to tell young guys and what I try to emulate is like, look, don't let that destroy your life and don't let it keep you from doing the work you got to do. Stay present, do the hard work, rebuild these relationships with your baby mother and your kids so you can decades down the road be able to say, yeah, I put some good work in and I put something on the table that my children can emulate. No matter how bad it got, I'll work my way back. And that's our whole thrust of our platform, our cast is just helping guys get to that point where they can say, "Hey, I'm proud of the work I put in as a dad."
yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, when you do leave and you go to a second marriage,
Hmm.
how was that with the siblings? Like, how was that introduction? How was that letting? Well, I mean, you're married, so it ain't like, you know what I mean? Like, I gotta let you know when it's a
Hmm.
marriage, right? So
Yeah.
it's different from just having another child, a baby mama or something.
Sure. Yeah.
How is that with the introduction of the siblings in that? Because the lifestyle that we had, they now get to have, and now how are they seeing that? How do they take that?
Yeah. So it was messy and sloppy because the way I left was messy and sloppy. So you know, one of the mentors that I listened to online says, "Hey, when you're blending a family, the idea you should have and the pictures you have in your mind is that." Blending and combining a family is like putting food in a crock pot. When you do it well, it's like putting food in a crock pot. It's low heat and a lot of time. And what that does is it gives opportunity for the different ingredients to cook in their own time, to get done in their own time. What most of us do is we just throw all the ingredients in a blender and say, we all together now. And so nobody gets done well. It's a lot of injuries. And so there were great impacts from my first set of kids. I didn't understand them at the time because I was putting my energy into this second relationship and these new kids that were coming. And so, but later, as the kids could voice, "Hey, Dad, I was really resentful because, like you just said, your new kids were getting the stuff we should have gotten. We weren't going on
Yeah.
vacations with you. You was traveling with them. Um, I was the only daughter. Now you got a stepdaughter. I resented that. So you hear those stories as they get older into their teens. Hey, I used to come and see you all every weekend. I don't want to come see you every weekend now. My friends are down here where mom stays. That's a real
Mm,
one and I'm choosing not to come up to see you. And so all of that comes to play. All of that comes out. Um, and so as a man, you have to understand that that is going to come up. And how are you going to handle it? Are you going to be resentful towards your kids, or are you going to eat it and understand that hey, that's a natural progression in this thing? How can you make it easier for them? Um, But what I discovered is a lot of men, we're trying to do that internal work, maybe, but we don't understand the kids are doing their own internal work too, and we're not doing stuff that helps them. So it's you're working on both things. So, but to answer your question, it was difficult. It was difficult on my kids. We are now just getting to the point where all of them, well, the oldest ones can really talk freely about it because you're still their dad. They don't want to make you feel bad,
yeah.
right? They don't want to bring
Yeah.
stuff up from 15, 20 years ago, but they got to process it. But it is hard. It is hard.
So yeah, that's a lot. The
Hmm.
youngest ones. Let me try to figure out how to say this right. since they never saw it before, eventually did you get to talk to them and say like they now get to see what you're like with children because they never saw you as in-home dad.
Right.
Like was the dynamic harder for them? Because before, the I never really saw him as a dad.
Yeah.
The other ones can resent you for one set of reasons because yeah, we know what it was like and now we lost it. The youngest ones, they had never seen it before.
Yeah.
And they're seeing it for the first time. So is
Yeah.
that how that dynamic was different for them or
It-
how was it for them?
yeah. It was like that. It was exactly like that. So the youngest with the first wife, who were like, I mean, they were young, man. I mean, I'm almost even ashamed to say how young they were. Like, I think they were like 2 and like 6 months. So they had no memory, right, except for visits.
Yeah.
And of
I mean, I
me,
get
like all the stuff we do as dad, the bedtime stories, take you to sporting events,
yeah, they
wrestling,
got none of
playing that.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
they got none of that. And so
I get it.
as they got older and they see their friends with that, they would wonder. It was more of a curiosity to them, like, I wonder what that's like. Even though they had stepdads and they're like, my first wife remarried, they had a stepdad, great dude. I was fortunate that he was a great dude. They had that, but they still wondered, man, what is it like to have like an intact family? And so with the youngest ones, that was what they voice now as adults. Ironically, some of my closest relationship with the kids is with those ones that I didn't grow up with, that I wasn't in the house with. So we have a very, very close relationship. Talk about everything. But that is one of the things that he brought up, is that I wondered what it was like, and hey, tell me what you were like growing up, Dad. Like there was a lot of stuff that I missed. So fortunately, we had a kind of relationship where he wants to kind of piece those things together. But it was a mystery for them. Like my dad's a nice guy. Like I see him now as an adult, he's a nice dude. Why did he leave? Man, what would it have been like if he had taught me how to ride a bike and all that stuff? So yeah, it leaves them with questions. Yeah.
And so there's another part that I haven't gotten to in my
Hmm.
parenthood journey that I know just naturally says natural progression is going to end up happening. It's that weekend with dad is not going to be the exciting thing that it
Yeah.
is now.
Yeah.
Just like sometimes, like I want to be with my friends. I want on the weekends I have games and I need to be right there with my friends. And like, how do you adjust or how were you able to handle that emotionally when they were telling you like, Dad, I don't want to come?
So it was two really difficult points. So we were talking about when your kids decide to not come down on the weekends. And so my daughter was the first one, right around the time she started turning, let's see, she was born in 96. So around the time she was 11 or 12, right when the smartphone and the iPhone came out and kids could connect to one another through that phone, man, that peer group connection
Oh
really
man.
took off. And man, I remember it started to get intense, and she came up for one weekend, didn't want to come, but I think her mom forced her to come. And I remember she was on her cell phone texting. And I remember calling her mom and saying, "You need to do something about this phone." And I remember my daughter looking me dead in the eye like daughters can do, and she was just looking me in the eye, still texting her friends. I think I told her to put the phone away or something like that. And she was just texting. And I said, yo. And then after that, it was like, yo, I'm choosing not to come up here. And it was hard because we were close. But that all that turmoil, it was normal stuff, normal teenage stuff. They're gonna pull away anyway. She had a challenging relationship with my wife, her stepmom. And then her friends were down 30 miles, south of where I was living. And so there was nothing pulling her up towards me. Everything was down there. And so that was hard. And then the second thing that was hard is when, this is another thing we don't think about, when we break up, is that eventually, your ex is going to have another dude in their life. If they're a young, intelligent, hardworking, nurturing mother, they're going to attract a guy, and they're not going to live as monks or nuns the rest of the time. So it's going to be a dude that you're going to be navigating access to your kids through. And so, she was dating a dude, and then she got engaged and got married. And I remember one time, um, he either called, or I was calling down there to work out, the pickup plans, the transition plans. And I remember him saying that, hey, their mother and I don't think it's a good weekend for them to come up. They don't want to come up. And I was like, yo, now that's another level. So I'm having to navigate through another person to get access to my kids. And so, but that is
Mm.
the
Serious.
consequence. Yes,
Push.
man. It was tough. It was very, very hard.
For not being
But
in the
those are some of
house.
the
That's the price
exactly.
you pay when you leave the house. That's
We try to tell jokers when you
that's
get
what
off that
and people don't
throne,
think. You got to think
when you
about all of that before you get out that house.
all of that. And but it's hard. It's hard to know that that card is going to get played, but it's going to get played. And you hope that he's a level-headed cat. You're mature enough to understand that, man, that's just how it rolls. And y'all both act in the best interest of the kids. But we know it doesn't always go that way. There's stories every day in the news about dudes who handle that in a dark manner. And but that's when the emotion is in your chest and the reality of your choice is in your chest. That chicken might not come home to roost for a decade. It might not come home to roost for 10 years, but when it comes home and you're like, yo, that's the reality of it. My kids are telling me they don't want to come see me. And this other dude is saying, hey, as parents down here, we don't think it's a good idea for them to come up. They voiced this to us. So yeah, I had to navigate that. Fortunately, had some good friends who helped me to be level-headed, had, a growing faith that helped me to see it, clearly. And we eventually, as a family, were able to work through that to the point where all of us can get along together now. But it was not always that way. It was really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then you do it again, right? So how does that doing it again really affect your image as far as your boys when it comes to, especially now that they're older, right? When it
Yeah,
comes to them seeing relationships and things
yeah,
of that nature, like they
sure.
saw it once, they see it again, and now they see
Hmm.
you for a third
Mm,
time. Like we'll get
yeah,
to your
third,
daughters
yeah,
as
third,
well, and we'll talk about their transition as well. But like by this time, your son's older, right?
much older. Yeah,
And so
much older.
now he's navigating relationships and things of that nature, and you, as a dad, trying to help him navigate through these things. Like, hey, man, fuck am I listening to you for? Like, how does that transition start to happen too?
Yeah, and what you just said is the reality of it. Hey, Dad, you put this set of work out on the table. That's not a good set of work, Dad. You're a nice dude, but you really don't have the receipts to tell us how to navigate things. All you can do is tell us from a place of don't do this, right? Because your life has showed how difficult that it could be. And so, for a little context, there was a big gap between the dissolution of the second marriage and then the new marriage. And I was actually at the point, AJ, where I was like, Lord, if you want me to stay single, I'm willing to be single. I was actually in a caregiving stage with my mom. And so I ain't had a time or the bandwidth to have anybody in my life because I was taking care of her. And then, um,
Yeah,
went to a party just, you know, um, with a buddy of mine just on a lark. And if he didn't go to the party, I wasn't gonna go to the party and ended up meeting the lady who would be eventually my third wife at this party. But because some time had passed and I had done the work of being consistent in my kid's life, we were at least at a point where, man, it was good between us. It was cordial. We could go out and, have lunch and do different things like that. They would choose to be with me. But again, it was hard for them. They're now adults and they hear me getting married again. I remember too, my daughter, the only girl, the only biological girl, and the son underneath him had
yeah,
really strong reactions with me getting married again because they felt like, dude, we're just getting time with you. You were divorced or not with your second wife. You had this period of time where it looks like we're gonna get some time with you because you're not married, and now we have this new lady who we don't know and now we got to kind of start that thing again. Now, fortunately, my third wife is exceptional at building relationships. It's been better than I could ever imagine, but it was still work, blending. But it was challenging. Now my boys, they're all old. They're 32, 28, 26, 27. I mean 26, 25, 24, down to 21. So the cool thing is that we can speak real frankly about women, relationships, sex, all that. And I can say, hey, from my life, you see this. don't do that. And if I was to do it again, I would navigate this way. But I'm not you. You got to put these things in practice on the job in real time. I give them principles like, hey, if you're not trying to sleep with a girl, you can't get as close to sleeping with her without sleep with her and expect you're not going to try to sleep with the girl. We're not built that way. We're not built to get right up close to it and say, nah, nah, nah.
No,
Let me reverse this. So
no.
don't put yourself in a position because
And
then children come and
what
it's a
movie
whole
was
other
what
rack of issues you got
bullshit
to deal
movie
with.
was
But
that? What movie was that happened? You know what I'm talking about? I'm trying to shout all the way. They started
something
singing at the end. Oh, I hated that. I hated that.
with,
Oh, I think I love my wife. Is that what it was?
I don't
I
know.
hated that.
I,
That's just not
I
real
know it wasn't
reality.
any movie I was
That's
ever
no
in.
way.
Right, right. Hey, man.
Hey,
There's
no.
nothing in us as men to put the reverse on that at that moment, bro. Come on, we're not built that way.
Yeah,
But your
yeah,
boys have
no.
to experience that in real time. So you just try to give them principles, try to help them, try to help them to see character in the young lady, because you know they're gonna see tail and everything else and the beauty. But hey, at least look for a character. At least look for kindness, because we know you see everything else. You know, we tell you, hey, you a Burgess, right?
Yeah,
We know you see everything else. So look for these other things before you push chips all in. Um, but yeah, it was. I had to build back a reputation strong enough to be heard, to be considered, because I had not put good receipts down when they were younger. So yeah, it's another thing you work through. But the good thing is that good principles are good principles, whether they come from a dude who didn't exercise good principles all the time, or you hear them from your granddad or the barber shop or one of your buddies. Hey, good principles and good truths, they stand the test of time. So you can either believe it or you can learn it through life experience. And like, yo, dad was right about that. And a couple of them I learned it through life experiences, and a couple of them are like, okay, dad, I'm gonna look at the lumps of your head and say, I'm not going that route.
yeah. So how was it navigating that relationship after you had left? After you had took the time to establish a relationship, even though it wasn't your biological child, but now it's a different
Hmm.
dynamic because your biological children, they're always going to be your biological children. It's the stepchild, but you built
Correct.
that relationship. What happens with that
Correct.
dynamic once you leave?
Yeah, I think it was hard again. So a little different, like you said, because you got it's a step relationship, and because the relationship with her mom was characterized by just tension pretty much the entire time. A lot of upheaval, a lot of conflict. It was a high conflict relationship. I think for her, she was relieved that, hey, we weren't battling with one another in front of her and her brothers. But there was a lot of stress she absorbed during the time that we were together. But just like the other ones, there was a period of, hey, I really didn't like how these things went down between you and my mom. I had this impression of you. You did things or didn't do things as a dad and a provider that put us in really tricky situations. And so that stressed me out. And so as she grew into adulthood, we were able to talk about that. We just went out for coffee, spent about 3 or 4 hours talking over coffee. She's now married. And so we, repaired that relationship, but it took some work. So I think whenever you split up, I don't think there's any kid generally, unless it's a really toxic, bad relationship, they just say, hey, I'm kind of glad, y'all aren't together. I have no feelings beyond that. There's things internally, particularly with the girls, where it's going to come out, and hopefully they have a platform where they can be really honest with you so they can process it. And they're not thinking, man, I'm going crazy because I feel this way about it. So fortunately, as she grew into adulthood and became married and understood that, man, marriage is a lot of work, and you looked at her parents and me and her mom a different way, we were able to heal a lot of those things. So, you know, but it was hard. It was hard on them. Probably the one that was the least difficult on is her younger brothers, because they were like, Dad, we know it was tough. We know it was hard, so we understand it, but they probably had the least impacts. But they were all affected. There was none of them that weren't
Yeah.
affected. But AD, like I said,
Okay.
fortunately, we all get together, all 10 kids and exes, can get together at Thanksgiving, and we have a lot of history, but we've done a lot of work, spent a lot of forgiveness, a lot of grace. Not perfect. It's something always kind of popping off, but we're able to do that after, 10, 15 years of work.
Okay, I was about to get you out of here with one last question, but that last part I just can't. There's no way I can just let you out of here with that. Like I can't just let you out the door with that. So you have all 10 kids and the exes. All 10 kids, I can like, yeah, all 10
Yes.
kids and the exes, and I'm guessing their husbands and stuff, and it's just how? Just I mean, I don't even know
Yeah.
how.
The current husband. Well, I think the temperature in any family is going to go by the oldest people in the family. So if you have oldest people that are hotheads, popping off, ready to rock at any moment, then that's going to be the environment in the family. But because myself and my first wife are really serious about modeling good, healthy relationships with our spouses, and then reconciliation amongst all the parties that were injured, that's what the kids have seen. But it took a lot of time. And so just recently, it was a really beautiful picture of my youngest with my second wife was having a birthday party. We got together for some Korean barbecue. And at the table, I was on one corner of the table. It was like 10 of us who went out for this because it's hard to get everybody together. But I was on one end of the table. And on the other corner was my current wife. Across from her was from my first ex, and next to her was my second ex. And they were all talking as moms and giving advice to one of my sons, my second oldest son, about just how to navigate some stuff in his life. So you can get there, but it's work. But I remember looking at that, and my one of my sons said, "Dad, what do you think about all of them being there?" I said, "Man, I'm just gonna keep my head quiet and my mouth quiet and eat this nice chicken that's being barbecued right here, bro. Let's keep it pushing. Don't mess
I
up
ain't
a
gonna
good
lie to you.
thing."
I ain't gonna
Basically,
lie to you. I see if I would have started, I probably would have shit myself. I would have shit myself. Like, I mean, I'm glad.
there's
I'm
some pinch
glad.
myself
It
moments,
shows that it can
but I
happen.
got it. Hey, hey, yeah, I got to give credit to God, man. I mean, we are faith-based family, and you don't get that place to me without doing some internal work with the Lord, and then a lot of forgiveness and grace being extended. Kudos to my first wife because it really doesn't happen without her extending a lot of grace and mercy. And then kudos to my current wife who came into a crazy blended situation. So it takes a lot of maturity, and kudos to the second wife too. It takes a lot of maturity for it to happen, and it's a blessing because now grandchildren, they just know we got a lot of grandparents, But it was some work,
Yeah.
bro. And there was some dog, there was some trench work being done. But we've laid a template for our kids of, hey, this is how you can do it. Don't get there. Don't learn the lesson the way we learned it. But these things are capable when you're mature and you pour into your relationship and you protect your relationship. So yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
So
it's a lot of ways to get to
with
it.
10
Don't do it the way I
kids.
did it. Keep it clean.
Yeah. Well, I can't. I mean, listen,
Hmm.
my doctor just shut that down. I'm not getting to that number. No, we're done with that. But with all of these children and grandchildren, what do you want your legacy as a father to be?
Hey, I showed up. I answered the bell. I corrected wrongs quickly, and I loved you deeply. Um, yeah, that's it.
Mm.
Wasn't perfect, but I answered the bell and got better at it every day. And I love you, and God loves you. Do it better than me. You know, that's it.
I mean, that's always a goal, right? You always want the children to do better than you. I appreciate it, man. I had a great time with this. I think your story can help a lot of people. There's a lot of people that go through these situations, especially when you get out of one or into another. It's like, man, I just don't know what to do. Especially out here, I got these kids. I don't know where I'm gonna move on to. I just want to work. But man, you had all of them at the table looking at it and without crying. Like I would have lost my
Hey,
mind.
it
That's
can
what
be
amazing.
done.
Hey, that just showed it's possible.
Yeah.
It can be done. Listen, if it
Hey,
happened
it
once, it
does.
can happen again.
It can be done. Hey, I
Yeah,
don't, yes, yes, it can. I don't recommend 3 wives and 10 kids, but do the work you can. All you can do is
yeah,
control the work you do
yeah.
as a man. And so, like John and I say, hey, get up and do your best next dad move every day. And generally things are going to work out well for you. But you know, pull your big boy pants up and know it's going to be some work and just do the work.
Yeah, pull them up and keep them up. Stop putting them down. I appreciate it, man. I love and appreciate it. Episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. I know you like what you saw. So what I need for you to do is go back and look at past episodes. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share our YouTube page, Just My Baby Daddy Podcast. And you can follow us on all social media at Just My Baby Daddy Pod. Episode of Just My Baby Daddy Podcast. I know you like what you saw. So what I need for you to do is go back and look at past episodes. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share our YouTube page, Just My Baby Daddy Podcast. And you can follow us on all social media at Just My Baby Daddy Pod.